in the heart of the Great Rainforest, where towering trees whisper ancient secrets and rivers wind through emerald canopies, two clans had lived side by side for generations. The Owan clan, known for their wisdom and deep connection to the land, thrived in peace, cultivating crops and practicing herbal medicine. The Iken tribe, on the other hand, were fierce warriors of the forest. They were celebrated for their strength and unmatched skills in hunting and battle. Though their lands bordered each other, these clans rarely mingled. Centuries-old rivalries, fueled by misunderstandings and competition for resources, kept them apart. But the spirits of the land, in their infinite wisdom, decided to weave the fates of these two clans through an unexpected bond. From the Owan clan came a young woman named Esosa, whose beauty was said to rival the glow of the full moon. Her laughter was like the song of a river, and her eyes held a warmth that could melt the hardest heart. Esosa was not just known for her beauty, she possessed a sharp mind and a brave spirit. She often ventured into the forest to gather rare herbs with her grandmother, who was the clan's revered healer. From the Iken tribe came a warrior named Osagie, a man with the strength of a panther and the grace of an eagle. His skin was dark and as rich as the soil, and his eyes held the fire of determination. Osagie was the pride of his people, having proven his bravery in many hunts and battles. Yet, beneath his formidable exterior, he longed for peace and understanding, a yearning that set him apart from many of his kinsmen. The path of Esosa and Osagie crossed one fateful day in the forest that lay between their clans' territories. Esosa had ventured deeper than usual, searching for the elusive adodo flower, renowned for its healing powers. Osagie, on the other hand, was tracking a wounded game, his keen senses leading him closer to where Esosa knelt by a clear stream. The forest was alive with the rustle of leaves and the call of distant birds. Lost in her search, Esosa did not hear the soft approach of footsteps until it was too late. She looked up, startled, and found herself staring into the fierce, curious eyes of Osagie. For a moment, time stood still. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they regarded each other, two strangers bound by the invisible thread of fate. Osagie's instincts urged him to reach for his spear, but something in Esosa's gaze, gentle and unafraid, made him pause. Esosa, sensing his weariness, raised her hands in peace. "I mean no harm," she said softly. "I'm Esosa of the Owan clan." The warrior's grip on his spear loosened. "I am Osagie of the Iken," he replied, his voice deep and cautious. They stood there, aware of the forbidding nature of their encounter. Yet, there was a pull between them, an unspoken recognition that defied the boundaries of their clans. Esosa broke the silence. "I seek the adodo flower. It blooms only once, every few seasons. My grandmother says it can heal even the deepest wounds." Osagie nodded, his gaze softening. "I've heard of it. My people speak of its power too." As they spoke, a fragile truce formed. They were no longer just a warrior and a healer. They were two souls seeking something beyond the confines of their clans. Hours passed as they shared stories by the stream, revealing hopes and dreams that transcended the barriers of their upbringing. Esosa spoke of her desire to become a healer as skilled as her grandmother, while Osagie shared his longing for a life where peace was not a fleeting shadow, but a lasting reality. As the sun dipped, they reluctantly parted ways, promising to meet again. Their secret meetings became a cherished ritual. Under the cover of the forest's embrace, they leaned towards each other. Esosa taught Osagie about the healing herbs, and he showed her how to move silently through the dense underbrush. But as their bond deepened, so did the risk. The forest, once their sanctuary, began to feel watchful, the trees seemingly whispering secrets of their encounters. Unknown to them, Osadolo, a scout from the Iken tribe, had been tracking Osagie's movement, suspicious of his absences. Osadolo spied on their meetings and hurried back to report to the Iken elders. In the Owan village, Esosa's younger brother, Omorige, grew worried about her frequent disappearances. Please subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell, like and comment. Thank you. And followed her one evening. His discovery filled him with fear and confusion, and he confessed what he had seen to their father, a respected elder. The news spread like wildfire, reigniting old animosities. The Iken elders, seeing Osagie's actions as betrayal, stripped him of his warrior status and exiled him. The Owan elders confined Esosa to the village, forbidding her from venturing out. When the lovers met for what they thought would be a simple reunion, they sensed the tension in the air. The forest, which once offered them solace, now felt charged with unseen eyes. Before they could speak, Osadolo and a group of Iken warriors appeared, their expressions unforgiving. "Osagie," Osadolo declared, "you have shamed our people. Leave now and never return." Osagie stood tall, his heart heavy but resolute. "I have found something worth more than my title," he said, glancing at Esosa. With the forest drumbeat signaling Esosa's discovery by her own clan, they knew they had little time. "We must leave," Esosa whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Hand in hand, they fled deeper into the forest, pursued by warriors of both clans, their hearts pounding with both fear and hope. The night was long, the underbrush tearing at their clothes as they moved swiftly under the canopy. The sounds of pursuit faded and surged as they navigated the labyrinth of trees and vines. With every step, the forest seemed to close in, as if testing their resolve. At dawn, they reached the foot of the ancient mountain that loomed over the rainforest. Their bodies were battered and weary, but their spirits burned with a fearsome determination. The journey ahead would be perilous, but their love was the guiding force that kept them moving. As they ascended the peaks, the spirits of the land watched, their whispers carried on the wind. The fate of Esosa and Osagie will become a tale told for generations, a testament to the power of love that dared to defy tradition and the trials it faced in the shadow of the Great Rainforest. The path was tough. The rocks were jagged, with steep inclines testing their strength. Osagie moved with the confidence of a warrior, his eyes scanning their surroundings for danger. Esosa, though not as skilled in climbing, followed with determination, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. "We must find shelter soon," Osagie said, glancing at the dark clouds gathering overhead. Esosa nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. "There!" She pointed to a small crevice in the mountainside, partially hidden by overgrown vines. They made their way to the shelter, squeezing inside just as the first drops of rain began to fall. The cave was small, barely wide enough for them both, but it offered a reprieve from the elements. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of rain pounding against the rocks, filling the space. "Do you regret it?" Esosa's voice was barely a whisper, her eyes searching Osagie's face. He turned to her, his expression softening. "Never," he said, reaching out to take her hand. "I will face 1,000 storms if it meant being with you." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled, squeezing his hand. "Together," she said. The rain continued through the night, but within the cave, they found a sense of peace. When morning came, they emerged to find the forest glistening with dew, the world reborn in the soft light of dawn. But their respite was short-lived. The sound of distant voices carried in the wind, and they knew their pursuers were close. "We need to keep moving," Osagie said, helping Esosa to her feet. They climbed higher, the path becoming steeper and more perilous with each step. The air grew thinner, burning in their lungs as they pushed themselves to keep going. Behind them, the shouts of their pursuers echoed faintly. a reminder that they could not afford to slow down. As they reached a narrow edge leading out over a sheer drop, Osagie paused to catch his breath, his eyes scanning the terrain ahead. The path twisted sharply, disappearing around a jagged outcropping of rocks. He glanced at Esosa, who stood behind him, her chest heaving as she struggled to steady her breathing. "We are close," he said, though he knew the hardest part was yet to come. "Once we pass this ridge, we'll be beyond their reach." Esosa nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. "Let's go," she whispered. They moved carefully along the narrow edge, the drop to their right plunging into a chasm filled with mist. The sound of the wind whistling through the rocks was both haunting and invigorating. Each step was a test of balance, and one misstep could mean disaster. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out from below. One of the Iken warriors had spotted them, and the sound of voices rose in a cacophony as more warriors scrambled up the mountain in pursuit. "Hurry!" Osagie urged, grabbing Esosa's hand to steady her as they quickened their pace. The path narrowed further, forcing them to press their backs against the rock. Just as they rounded the outcropping, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. Loose stones clattered down the mountainside, and Esosa, frightened as her foot slipped, Osagie's grip tightened, pulling her back to safety. "Stay with me," he said, his voice firm but filled with an underlying current of fear. They continued, hearts pounding, until they reached a plateau nestled between towering peaks. Here, the wind was less fierce, and the view stretched out before them in a breathtaking panorama of forested valleys and distant hills, bathed in golden light. Esosa sank to the ground, exhaustion threatening to pull her into a stupor. "We need to rest," she said, her voice barely audible. Osagie nodded, kneeling beside her. The adrenaline that had propelled them this far began to ebb, leaving only the heavy thrum of their pulses and the chill of the mountain air. "We'll rest here for a moment," he said, his eyes scanning the path they had come from. But not for long. As they sat in silence, the forest below seemed almost peaceful, unaware of the chaos that had driven them here. The tension in the air eased, and for a moment they could almost believe they were safe. "Osagie," Esosa whispered, breaking the silence, "do you think the spirits of the forest will guide us?" He looked at her, the fierce determination in her eyes softening. "They have brought us this far," he said. "I believe they will not abandon us now." A sudden noise shattered the calm, the crack of a branch, the clatter of stones dislodged by hurried footsteps. The warriors were close. "Go!" Osagie said urgently, helping Esosa to her feet. "We need to keep moving." They sprinted across the plateau and up a steep incline that led to a narrow pass between two peaks. The wind whipped around them, tugging at their clothes. Each step was a battle against exhaustion, the weight of their journey pressing down on them like an invisible burden. As they reached the pass, a figure stepped into their path. It was Osadolo, his expression hard and unforgiving. "You've gone far enough," he said, his voice cold and resolute. Behind him, more warriors emerged, their weapons glinting in the pale light. Osagie stood protectively in front of Esosa, his hand gripping the hilt of his knife. "We won't go back," he said, his voice steady despite the odds. Osadolo's eyes narrowed. "You defied the laws of our people. For that, there is no forgiveness." Before anyone could move, the mountain rumbled again, this time with a force that sent shock waves through the ground. The warriors staggered, some losing their footing as the tremor intensified. "The spirits!" someone shouted, panic flickering in their eyes. A deep, resonant sound echoed through the path as if the mountain itself had spoken. Rocks began to fall, and a cloud of dust rose, obscuring their vision. Osagie seized the moment. "Now!" he shouted, pulling Esosa through the confusion and towards the other side of the pass. They ran, their path lit only by slivers of light filtering through the dust. Behind them, Please subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell, like, and comment. Thank you. Shouts of the warriors faded, replaced by the groans of shifting stones and the wind's mournful wail. When they finally emerged from the pass, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over a vast expanse of forest stretching into the horizon. They stood at the threshold of an unknown land, their future uncertain, but their hearts unwavering. Esosa turned to Osagie, her eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of hope. "We made it," she said, her voice breaking. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as they looked out over the new world before them. "Together," he whispered as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. They took their first steps into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead as long as they had each other.